Hello, welcome to the EaglesZone talk show. Alongside with me is Curran Ayer and Jake Gagliardi. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to deliver you the best Eagles news around. How you doing?
I'm pretty good, Garv. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic, Jake. How you doing, Curran?
Better than most days, Gar, just because this breaking news that Byron Maxwell and his enormous contract are finally being voided and traded.
This is my big gift. Byron Maxwell is out and Kiko Alonso is out. And boy, they played like shit last year.
They really did. I mean, Maxwell was Bradley Fletcher 2.0, and Kiko Alonso was almost invisible.
And
He made one play basically, and that was a catch, which linebackers usually don't do. So, I don't know, Kiko Alonso.
Well, yeah, Kiko Alonso is an interesting one, and we'll get into that. But Byron Maxwell, you can make the comparison that he was Nnamdi Asomugha 2.0. I mean, I think that's a fair comparison.
I mean, between Nnamdi Asomugha, Patrick Chung, Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie, it was almost every solid corner or safety that came into this system came out like crap and then made Pro Bowl next year. Another example is Kurt Coleman.
And yeah, you're right about that. And maybe that's the system, but hopefully this changes around because obviously Billy Davis, this is long news, but Billy Davis fired, Chip Kelly fired. Hopefully they can change this and make this an elite defense again. But first, let's get to the news. Byron Maxwell and Kiko Alonso traded for draft picks, according to Adam Schefter. We don't know what those draft picks are, but 1 year in the system, how do you guys feel about that?
I don't disagree with it, but at the same time, I don't agree with it because it's just that they never really had the chance to prove themselves. And as I said before, it could have been the system. So you never know. But it depends on which draft picks we get because they haven't announced that yet. If it's a first-round pick, perfect. I'm done with that. But we could get even more.
I don't really necessarily agree with the Kiko Alonso part. I think he still may have had some issues with his knee or whatever else he was dealing with, and
I think the Dolphins did see that too.
Yeah.
So that's why they wanted him in it.
Mm-hmm. I think they saw both him and Maxwell, even though they didn't really perform as well as they should have. They have a lot of potential there. So I think the first round pick, if we do get that, would be perfect compensation for them.
It would be. And not to mention that the Dolphins did cut Brent Grimes, and since we do have cap room now, you never know. There's a bunch of great corners and safeties on the free agent market that we could get, and the draft between Jalen Ramsey from Florida State, who we could, if we were to get the 8th overall pick, trade up and get, or take him at 8 if he does fall that far.
And Kiko Alonso, he made a great catch against Atlanta. I'll give him that. A great catch.
Better hands than all of our receivers, it seemed like.
Yeah, but did he make any other plays?
No,
I don't think so.
I saw him at one point running away from the ball.
Yeah.
At the goal line.
And Curran, you even saw this too. Kiko Alonso, it looked like he was turning into Casey Matthews. He couldn't tackle anybody. I mean, he was just...
He was invincible. That's all he was.
He just wasn't there. And maybe, as you said, it might have been the leg. It might have been something going on with him. As we know, people who tend to deal with ACLs, they aren't fully back the season after their ACL injury. So, I mean, we can talk about Bradford too, how he might have not been fully back and he was progressing through the year. But, I mean, Kiko Alonso just looked lost. And who knows, maybe we should have gave him another year, but...
That's what I'm thinking. But if we do get the first round pick out of him, nobody's complaining. I mentioned that he was, I mean, you saw in one of the later games in the season, he obviously wasn't planning hard enough on the foot. He didn't have enough confidence in the knee. So, I mean, he wasn't fully recovered. They played him hurt almost.
It feels that way. It really does. And with trading Kiko Alonso, I do have some concern now because we just traded we didn't trade him, but we cut D'Amico Ryans. So there's a bit of concern at that linebacking position where we thought we were strong at the beginning of last season. We thought this was going to be the best linebacking core in the league.
Best front seven.
Best front seven, yeah, of course.
And
And
not to, and the D line definitely didn't disappoint.
Well, I will say this: we do have some hope in Jordan Hicks, and we still have Michael Kendricks and Connor Barwin. So I still think our starting linebacker core is still there. Now I just need to find some depth.
And Vinny Curry does also play outside
That's
linebacker.
right.
He started playing that in the middle of the year because after Jordan Hicks got hurt, right?
Yeah.
uh, what we're gonna do right now is talk about the 4-3. We're just gonna transition into this. The Eagles changed their 3-4 to a 4-3 this offseason. They hired Jim Schwartz, and right now things are looking up for the defense. Although Maxwell and Kiko Alonso got traded, questionable maybe. If we get that first rounder, though, as Jake said, it might be all worth it. But let's talk about how we could possibly make this defensive line better in a 4-3. Jake, you thought of the idea of bringing Mario Williams here.
Yes, I did, and I can explain that because Mario Williams had a career year when he was playing under Jim Schwartz in the 4-3 defense in, I believe, Buffalo. Or maybe,
Yes, Buffalo.
yeah, Buffalo. Um, you don't have that many good seasons when you're that old. He's a defensive leader to begin, and everybody would look up to him. I mean, that's a young defense you're talking about. When one of the oldest players on the team on the defense is Malcolm Jenkins, he can be your leader. He's a great 4-3 pass rusher still, even though the stats didn't show it last year. He's a run stopper. And to go along with Benny Logan, Fletcher Cox, and Brandon Graham, that's ridiculous. That's a great 4-3 defense.
Just like the way that Jake said, like we have a solid defensive line. Our starting linebacking core is very deep. I think with this transition, I think it's better suited to the strengths of each player.
And you can't forget about Connor Barwin, Cedric Thornton, Vinny Curry, all of those, maybe not as significant now, but very good role players.
Yeah, and they're gonna have endless cap. I mean, uh, we can agree on that
Yeah.
if these rumors are true. But Corin, you have some information on Tahir Whitehead, who, by the way, is a prospect the Eagles are looking at. He's on the Detroit Lions, and he looks to be maybe a replacement for Kiko Alonso, according to reports.
Yeah, so basically what I found out about him is that he's on the Detroit Lions now. He played for Temple Owls football back in 2012, and he was a fifth-round pick by the Lions. So he has some connection to Philadelphia there. And he also has a connection to our new defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, where he played under him for 2 years, I believe, in Detroit. So I think he has experience in the 4-3 defensive scheme. He knows Philadelphia. I think he'd be a perfect fit, not necessarily in being like right away starting like impact player, but eventually if we can ease him in, he'll be a solid role player for the defense.
Yeah, and looking at some of his stats too, his 40-yard dash is at 4.70. He weighs 242 pounds. His height's 6'2". So he's a fairly big guy and a little athletic. So
Oh,
that
definitely. And actually, from the time that he was actually measured at the combine to now, he grew an inch. He's put on 10 pounds of muscle. I wouldn't doubt if he got faster. He can jump higher now. He's definitely an athletic freak.
all right, joining me right now is Dom Amoroso, and of course you saw him in the first episode. Dom, how you doing, man?
Fellas, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I know Jake's doing great.
Yes, I am.
So, Dom, first off, before we get into this trade that happened just a few hours ago, what do you think about the 4-3? What do you think of what Jim Schwartz is trying to do here?
Jim Schwartz. He is mainly a 4-3 guy, and I followed him a lot throughout his career. Schwartzy back in the day, he's a guy. He started under Bill Belichick in the operations department for the Browns. So I mean, he's seen a lot of great defenses. He's worked under Belichick. He's worked under Rex Ryan. He's worked under Marvin Lewis in Baltimore, and of course, he's developed his own defense. He did say in his opening press conference that his style is attack. It's not necessarily a 4-3 or a 3-4. It is attack.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see a lot of versatility in his defense. You're going to see a lot of versatility in personnel, which I think is good for this defense. And you're going to see a lot of creativity. It's going to be a complete change from what Bill Davis was, and even the guys before Bill Davis, the Todd Bowles and the Sean McDermotts of the world.
Yeah, and it does look like it's going to be a different style of defense than what we're used to. Like back in the old day, in the early 2000s with Jim Johnson and all these guys, you had Brian Dawkins, you had Jeremiah Trotter, you had Hollis Thomas, you had these guys just attacking, just manhandling the quarterback. It looks like we're going to be getting a lot of blitzes, a lot of different type of coverages than what we've been used to seeing these past few years in Philadelphia.
And well, that's right. And well, the interesting thing is, nowadays a lot of offenses focus on spreading the field. Believe it or not, when Schwartz got to Tennessee under Jeff Fisher, one of his first, philosophies of defense was how do we get teams to stretch the field. So he wanted to it wasn't, the early 2000s wasn't this era of spread football necessarily. So I mean, his defense is basically ahead of its time, in my opinion. It's been built to stop the future, and the future's here. So I think it's a perfect fit. It's worked everywhere he's gone.
And, I mean, he's even been a head coach, so he's obviously been well recognized and well respected.
And absolutely, and a lot of coaching brethren I know, they weren't a fan of him being fired in Detroit. I don't think he should have been fired in Detroit.
Neither do I.
But he's a great football mind. He brings a great organizational mind to the organization, and overall, he is an NFL guy. He's not one of these guys that spent time in the college and the pro game. He is a full NFL guy, and I think that's very valuable to this organization.
It is, especially coming off of that disaster of a 3-year thing with Chip Kelly, obviously coming from Oregon.
But
I mean,
we're not going to be talking about the Detroit Lions either because oh my God, you think we have it bad? The Detroit Lions have it worse. I mean, right now, when's the last time Detroit won a playoff game? In the 1990s, early 90s, right? So
yeah, before I was born.
Yeah, before you were born. I mean, and Calvin Johnson retiring, but that's a whole nother world. Yeah, let's let's get into this. We have Jim Schwartz coming here in Philadelphia. What do you think the secondary is going to be looking like next season? I mean, Byron Maxwell just got traded. Kiko Alonso, our linebacker, possibly gone too. So, what do you think the secondary is going to be looking like?
Oh well, first off, I think getting rid of Byron Maxwell and Kiko Alonso is a phenomenal move. It definitely, we'll obviously we'll get into that later on, but I think it's a great move. In terms of the secondary, you're going to see. I think you're going to see a lot of the guys retained. They might draft a guy or two. Schwartz isn't really known for his hasn't really been known for his secondaries. It's always been about the defensive line. So I think the secondary, we're going to have to see what happens in the draft, what happens in free agency. Do they trade a guy here? Do they trade a guy there? Where do they try to scrap guys?
So, Dom, what would you think about then if they were to get this 8th overall pick from the Dolphins, and now that they don't have Maxwell or Kiko Alonso, would you trade that pick and the 13th overall pick that we got in because of a 7-9 record? Would you trade that up to get maybe a Jalen Ramsey figure or somebody of that caliber in the top 3?
The funny thing is, I do like Jalen Ramsey. I think he's going to have I think his rookie year he's going to be a little off. I think he's going to have a hard time adapting his style of play to the pro game, and especially in a defense like Jim Schwartz that's so that's so built off the pro game. I think Jalen Ramsey would be a good pick if they were to trade up. I just don't think you're going to see the results in year one.
Mm-hmm. Would you rather though either get Jalen Ramsey or pick maybe Laquan Treadwell or somebody of that caliber, and then also have your 13th overall pick?
The 13th overall pick, and the picks that are 13 through 20 or whatever, they're what I like to call the Jello picks. It's that situation where what you need, but is what you need going to be there when you need it? So I think, and especially with a first year coach, a guy like Doug Peterson, and now that Howie Roseman's got some control back, I don't think it'd be a bad idea at all being aggressive on the draft board on draft day.
Dom, now we're going to talk about Doug Peterson and transition a little. Doug Peterson, obviously, he was groomed by Andy Reid. He was even coached by Andy Reid. He was a quarterback in Philadelphia in '99 before McNabb took over. He's been groomed under Andy Reid for his whole coaching career, and now with Jeffrey Lurie kind of in a panic mode, I think he had to go where he was comfortable, and that was Doug Peterson, the next closest thing to Andy Reid. What do you think is going to be a little different about Doug Peterson's coaching compared to Andy Reid's coaching?
The funny thing is, I don't think you're actually going to see a lot of Andy Reid and Doug Peterson. A lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, but let me just get into this.
Mm-hmm.
Doug Peterson, followed Andy Reid from Green Bay, and Andy Reid and Doug Peterson were under Mike Holmgren, who's a borderline Hall of Fame coach, won a Super Bowl, been to 3. But I think in terms of how Doug Peterson, makes an identity for himself as a head coach, I think you're going to see a lot. I think in terms of the X's and O's of the game, we're going to see a lot of Andy Reid. I think in terms of the actual, the meat of coaching football and being in charge of an NFL organization, I think you're going to see a lot more Mike Holmgren. So I think you're going to see him definitely trying to really make Sam Bradford the face of the organization. I think you're really, like I said, the one thing with Mike Holmgren, he was always able to make his quarterback the star player. So I mean, I think we'll see a lot of Mike Holmgren and Doug Peterson.
And by the way, since you mentioned Sam Bradford, can we just get this cleared up? Sam Bradford, that was the best move to re-sign him.
I mean, they were kind of trapped in a corner with it. I really don't think there was any other better move. I think the 3 quarterbacks everybody's looking at this year. I think all of them. I don't think any of them are pure busts, so to speak. I just think they'll be stuck in mediocrity. I don't see a lot of liking Paxton Lynch.
No,
So I
not at all.
mean, I think I think keeping Sam Bradford was a good safety move.
I do too. And the Paxton Lynch, I don't think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be a bust. But Carson Wentz, Christian Hackenberg, Jared Goff, they have tremendous upsides. As you saw, I'm a big Penn State fan. Christian Hackenberg again. When he had Allen Robinson as his wide receiver, he was amazing. This guy could throw deep. He had Bill O'Brien as his head coach too. Remember that, not James Franklin. And he could launch the ball down the field. And he did have a 4.7 for his 40 time too, so he's not slow.
No, not at all.
Yeah, he's not slow. The other thing with Christian Hackenberg, I think you got to factor in though. I think he's very adaptable to the pro game. I just don't think, and from guys I talk to in the league that are that I know in the league that are scouts or were scouts, a lot of people don't see a lot of upside in Hackenberg. I just don't think he necessarily has the bravado necessarily to be an NFL quarterback at the moment.
Well, I mean, it also does take some time. He is a senior, or is he a junior or senior? I can't remember that right now, but
Junior.
He is a junior. That's like a great age to be able to get like more prepared for the NFL because
it absolutely is.
You're maturing and everything and all that.
Well, let's see what happens. Who knows? Maybe if we pray hard enough, we might go to the playoffs this year. But Dom, thanks for joining us. If you want to follow Dom Amoroso, his Twitter is going to be in the description. And guys, thanks for joining us on the Eagles Zone. We're going to make this a weekly thing. Every week we're going to try to get better and better. So your comments are appreciated. Please like the video if you enjoyed and let us know what you would want the Eagles to do to get better in the future. And let us know how you like this Byron Maxwell and Kiko Alonso deal, man. I mean, it's an interesting one.
All right. Help spread the word, too.
Yeah, help spread the word. This is a new show. It's going to be shaky at first. But, we'll get there eventually. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Well, anytime. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. And if you want to follow him, once again, he's in the description. And peace out. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.